Good evening, and welcome to the Council Advisory Committee meeting of the 14th of November, 2022. This meeting is being held in chambers, and the meeting is being live streamed on Facebook Live. Council is pleased to welcome Nicole Vino and Peggy DiCarlo. They will be our sign language interpreters for this CAC meeting. Welcome, ladies. The most up-to-date meeting package is on the Town of Kentville website. This meeting is called to order. Have all of the councillors received and reviewed their meeting package? Does any member of council have information pertaining to a matter before this council which has not been publicly circulated? Council, the chair has circulated a copy of a recommendation for review under item 8A, the 2023 council meeting schedule, which will be up for discussion, but it has not been publicly circulated. It will form part of the meeting package after this meeting is completed, but it will be discussed in its entirety during this meeting. As a Council Advisory Committee, CAC, we will vote as a committee to either send business forward to the council meeting for ratification, return to staff for further information or review, or defeat the recommendation. I will remind members of council that we should continue to be mindful of our decision-making wheel to make balanced and respectful decisions while adhering to our code of conduct. This council, through policy and by motion, has adopted Robert's rules as our rules of order. The council will be voting electronically on all motions except administrative, which will be by show of hands. Are there any conflict of interest issues that council should be aware before the meeting commences? The chair notes that we have quorum. We have been provided with a proposed agenda. Are there any further additions or deletions to this agenda? There is one note under 3A, the Council Advisory Committee. Those should be the October 10th of 2022 minutes that we will be approving. If I could have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Councillor Huntley, thank you. Thank you. Councillor York? All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. The minutes of the October 11th, 2022 CAC meeting have been distributed for approval. If there are no changes, the minutes are approved as distributed. If there are changes, the recording secretary will annotate the minutes. Are there any changes? Seeing none, we'll go with approved as distributed. Thank you very much. And this evening, we're very pleased to have a presentation from the Kentville Police Community Crisis Navigator, Ashley Ettinger. And Ashley, if you want to take the podium. And normally we have 10 minutes reserved for presenters, but you're our only presenter tonight, and we are all absolutely waiting to hear your presentation. So the time is yours.
Thank you. Perfect. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to come in and speak to you about the Community Crisis Navigator position with Kentville Police. I'm Ashley Ettinger, and I started in this role back in May. It's safe to say in the past 6 months, this role has been evolving. Oh, and my there we go, and will hopefully continue to grow as this position has been seen as an asset within the community. This position was developed with the idea of working with different organizations to ensure that those in need get the support required. As we all know, many of the vulnerable individuals in Kentville experience poverty, food scarcity, addictions, and mental health issues, which can often lead to interactions with the police and involvement in the criminal justice system. One of the key focuses was to provide assistance and resources needed in hopes that we could intervene before this takes place. So how's it going? One of the primary focuses when I started was making connections with third-party organizations and service providers, and this went extremely well. Everyone that I met with saw a need for this role and were super eager to see how we could all work together moving forward. We have also been working on building a directory of resources. This directory has been beneficial not only internally with our staff and our officers, but also with third-party organizations who are just wondering what options are available within the community. As the directory continues to be developed, it will be used not only to educate officers, but to inform the residents of Kentville on the options that are available to them. Lastly, since May, I've been doing a significant amount of work with clients. The Community Crisis Navigator role has allowed me to help in many different capacities, from providing emotional support and a listening ear to exploring individualized situations and developing appropriate plans. One of the largest parts of this role so far has been advocating for individuals who are accessing resources but are feeling overlooked due to their mental health, their mental illness, addictions, or any other factor that's put them into a marginalized population. As you can tell from the extensive list here, we've been able to expand the focus of this role to help adapt and meet the needs of the individuals in Kentville. As mentioned, building relationships with community organizations was a large focus, and it happened pretty instantaneously. It allowed me to not only understand the services offered within Kentville and the surrounding areas, but also provide individuals with more appropriate resources specific for their needs. Since establishing those connections, we've been able to meet individuals where they're at and provide a more collaborative approach. Another part to the community partnerships is just having a presence throughout Kentville. We can do this through attending open houses, the Town of Kentville events, or even just making an appearance at the school. This has allowed us to have a broader reach on informing the general public of this role as well. I want everyone to take a minute and just think to yourself, do you know somebody that could benefit from being connected with resources or who may benefit from this role? The answer is probably yes. As a larger strain gets put on some of our agencies, it is extremely helpful to know that there are other avenues that can be explored to help people. I will pass over this slide, but I encourage you to read about the partnerships that this role has allowed us to make with organizations affiliated with the criminal justice system. A large sector that the CCN position has been heavily involved in is with the healthcare system. As everyone is aware, the strain on the healthcare system is extremely apparent. We are working towards avoiding unnecessary emergency department visits by connecting individuals with appropriate resources proactively instead of reactively. This role has given me the opportunity to meet with staff and also shadow multiple positions, which has been extremely beneficial as we work towards closing the gap in the roles and responsibilities between Kentville Police Service and Nova Scotia Health. As we move forward, having these partnerships developed will allow us to solidify the service delivery between the two organizations in hopes that we can provide a more consistent response to mental health. Internally at Kentville Police, we've been doing a lot of work with policy development and educating officers on the resources that are available. The CCN has also been utilized on calls for service when requested. And as most of you know, having someone respond who is not in a uniform can be a large asset when you're dealing with individuals who are experiencing crisis. As we continue to develop this role, there is room for much more growth. I do believe, however, in the last 6 months, the Kentville Police Service has made a significant difference in the community by being able to connect people in need with the Community Crisis Navigator. And the stats I'm about to show you demonstrate themselves. So this slide shows the referrals since this position was implemented back in May. There's been a consistent increase in the referrals, totaling 32 internal referrals and 7 external referrals. When you step back and take a look at the big picture here, it demonstrates that 39 individuals have been connected with the resources that they needed since May. Out of the 39 individuals who were referred, the breakdown is apparent that there's a lot of major issues that individuals are facing, and these are the 5 key ones. Individuals who I've been working with are looking for resources related to addictions, housing, food, mental health, and around the criminal justice system. This slide just breaks down what my caseload would look like. As you can see, a large percentage of the individuals I work with solely need that initial visit. So we explore their situation, we look at their needs, and we perform an intake. At that point, we provide them with the relevant resources. I leave my contact information, and they can reach out if they require any further connections. The second group is at 18%, and this is a demographic that I've worked with on a number of occasions, but they've now been connected with the appropriate resources and no longer require ongoing support. The last portion is the 23%. This is the group of individuals who I'm providing ongoing support to. So this could look like anything from daily phone calls to weekly visits or just to check in. And to date, there's 9 individuals who I'm working with on that consistent basis. The first example here is one of those individuals who's receiving ongoing support. So this individual had consistent calls coming into police. As you can tell, in the last 12 months, the calls were fairly consistent. However, after the 3rd call in June, the individual was referred to me. At that initial meeting, we explored the issues and were able to narrow down what their concerns truly were. We slowly started to dive into what the resources were available, and we developed a plan that fit their needs. Since I started working with this individual in June, we've had 21 interactions. Most of them consisted of weekly check-ins and home visits, which has proven to be effective as we've seen a decrease in calls for service and because the individual is getting their needs met through other resources. As of October, our numbers were down to 0. Example 2 demonstrates something completely different. So from June until September, I had 68 interactions with this individual alone. The list on the left are just a few examples of how I was able to connect and support them in their situation. Anything from coordinating transportation to and from appointments, to getting information around how to obtain a valid Nova Scotia driver's license, the plan with this individual was constantly adapting. Our goal was to provide the appropriate amount of support as they work towards deepening their stability within the community. It's important to recognize in this scenario that 13 separate organizations and their services were required. The CCN role was a consistent factor when working with these organizations and overseeing the file to ensure that nothing fell through the cracks. Lastly, I thought it was important to shine light on the difference this position is making to people within the community and within the organizations that I've been working with. So I encourage you to take some time to have a look at some of the feedback that we've been receiving, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you guys have about the role.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ashley. That was a great presentation, and I will open the floor now to members of council. Councillor York.
Thank you. So I've recently been reading about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's work in the Bronx, and I understand that the Bronx and Kentville are demographically quite different. However, humans in general are not, and their needs generally are not. And what they've seen in the Bronx, and what obviously we're seeing here, is that whenever people are diverted from the justice system, success more or less follows immediately. Having an 18% no longer requiring ongoing support is tremendous in 6 months. That is absolutely tremendous, and I am floored in the best way possible. So thank you so much for your hard work on that. Can you explain how the referral process works and what we can explain to people to help connect everyone in the right direction to you, ultimately?
Yes, absolutely. That's a really great question. When I started, we were taking internal referrals and external referrals, but a lot of them were coming from calls from service. So officers would respond to a call, they would see if there's a need, and then they would make a referral to myself to do the intake. We have expanded that, which is really great. A lot of third-party organizations have been reaching out for referrals. There's just services that they can't provide alone. So having that, they can reach out, they can make a referral, and I can be connected to an individual that way. I'm also going out on calls for service now, so we get a lot of referrals that way as well. So once I make that initial contact, it's a little bit easier to get that process in with the person.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Huntley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for doing the role for us, for sure. I guess I'm going to ask you a simple question.
Sure.
How are you at the end of the day?
How am I?
Yeah, because let's think about the role you are doing
Mm-hmm.
in helping all the people that I'm sure you want to help everybody all at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's a big job.
Yeah.
How do you feel at the end of the day?
That's a very kind question. At the end of the day, I mean, some days are definitely harder than others. I will be very transparent about that. I have a super supportive team, which is very helpful. We also do a lot of debriefing, which is helpful after certain calls. But self-care is really important for me. And when I started in this field, I made that a priority to make sure my own mental health would stay in check.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Oh, thank you, Worship. Thank you, Ashley. Thanks for the presentation, and it's nice to meet you, and thanks for the work that you're doing. So I'm just wondering what some of the challenges you're finding with, like, working with Nova Scotia Health Authority, specifically, in mental health. It's, you know, it's pretty clear that the two major pieces are the mental health and the housing piece. So I'm just wondering sort of some of the challenges that you're having with that piece and how you overcome that. And I'm just wondering, as you move through this role and as you change and morph in it, what does that look like for Kentville moving forward in terms of the impact on our community?
Sure. So I will start with the first part. So some of the challenges, there was a lot of disconnect and a lot of gaps identified, which was part of the reason this role started. Gaps within the system and obviously gaps between agencies. Like everyone has a very specific role in what services they provide. So that was certainly one of the challenging parts starting out and understanding who provides what service and how we can connect them. As I work with organizations, I'm definitely finding that's smoothing out a little bit, but there are certainly some hiccups. Like the mental health system, especially within like the hospitals and things like that, it's just, there's a lot, right? There's a strain on the system, but I do think there are a lot of external resources that people could be utilizing that they just aren't aware of. Yeah, so getting that education out there to people I think would be super important.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my other question about how it looks moving forward for Kentville.
That's a great question. Would you like to speak to that?
All right.
Since she's on a term job, she doesn't know how it's gonna look.
Oh, right, of course. Silly me.
So she can't answer that question because at the end of January, the money stops.
Right.
So, going forward, obviously, I want this position to be a fully funded
Sure.
position within the
Yeah.
town. One of the things I've noticed, excuse me, at the, as this goes through the last 6 months, is the change within the office with the police officers and interacting with Ashley and actually relying on her and encouraging her to come to calls and treating her as a resource within within the office. I can only see, so you look at the stats from, the caseload, but even looking at the calls for service breakdown, that's what the police see. Like the criminal justice piece is a small part of what we see. So the requirements on the police service are only going to increase in these roles. And so I hope as we move forward that her role is more entrenched in what we do day to day. And I think as I see with the letters of reference that I have from all the agencies she partners with, I have 5 now. Well, 3 in my hand, 2 that are going to come. There's a desire to work with us more so than they would because it's not a police officer. There's a confidentiality with her work that when she talks to somebody, she doesn't come back and tell me what they said. It's not it's a personal thing that she works with service providers, so the trust level between police and the agencies are improving. So I can only see, as we go on, this being more and more entrenched in the community, and people come to rely on it. And she may get too busy, right? I mean, she's busy now, for sure, but it may be, the demand may be a little overwhelming because agencies try to pull her into their world to use her to assist with them when really her role is a navigator to get them to resources. So it's kind of a loaded question. We don't know what the next 6 months are going to look like or a year. But I don't see any turning back personally. Now that we've introduced this in the community, I don't know how we take it away. And I know that's a terrible thing to say to the people that have the money, but that's kind of my pitch is that, we've introduced something that I actually think that a lot of people rely on. When you see the stats, 39 individuals. So think of the day-to-day work that goes on in the town. These are 39 of the most vulnerable people in town that are using the service. And if she wasn't there, what would be the response? The police would go, they'd look at from the law enforcement lens, maybe they'd get charged, maybe they go to jail, maybe they'd get tickets. Our whole goal here really, certainly in Kentville, is to divert people from the criminal justice system when appropriate. Obviously, there's times when it's not appropriate, but if you have mental illness or addiction, you have no home, where's the public interest in taking people and locking them up, even though they may have committed a minor criminal offense? So this is the kind of move, we're trying to move forward to more of a community-led type of policing environment.
Well done. Thank you very much.
Did that help?
Yes, very much. Thank you.
All right, Councillor York, I see your name. However, I'm going to go to Councillor Zabian as it will be his first time speaking. Councillor Zabian.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, you stole my question, but I do have one question. First of all, thank you for all you do. We appreciate it. Maybe to the chief, this is the first time we've ever had anybody in this role in Kentville, do you know, in the history of?
So I don't know if this exists anywhere. So what happened was when I started here 2 years ago, I was a constable in frontline patrol. And I noticed we go to a lot of calls with people living under bridges, mental health, that type of thing, which I really didn't experience as much in Halifax because I hadn't been in patrol for 20-some years in Halifax. So fast forward to a year, I'm in this role and I'm going to a lot of public meetings and community meetings. And I realize there's a ton of people that are doing a ton of great work, but they're, someone's working in housing, someone's looking at mental health. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice if we could figure out a way to get people connected to this role? So I sat down one day and wrote a grant for this position. So I don't know if it exists anywhere. It could. I'm not going to suggest I created this navigator role, but it doesn't exist in Nova Scotian policing for sure.
Okay.
I've shared the posting with some of my colleagues because as they hear about it, they think, well, this seems like a pretty good idea. As you know, policing is expensive. The police officers get paid a fair bit of money. So future policing certainly is civilianization of policing where inappropriate, and I certainly see this as a role that adds way more value than cost, and that's how it happened. But yeah, I
Okay.
don't think it exists anywhere else.
Perfect, thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Ashley. Wonderful presentation, and this is exactly what the former commission and this council was looking for when we went along with the chief and put this in place. And to see the numbers dropping, and with that would come some relief on the officers as well. And so I think this is a very necessary thing, and I give you full kudos for what you're doing. It's amazing.
you.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much.
Councillor York.
Thank you, and my apologies, this is on the spot, and it's likely for the chief instead, so again, my apologies. I'm wondering if anecdotally you've noticed, or maybe even with actual stats and figures behind it, what the correlation is between the drop in crime this time last year versus this time now, and then also sort of like month over month, and if not sort of anecdotally, is there an opportunity to perhaps do a deeper dive so that we can have those figures in hand when making, or having conversations rather?
So I can't give stats on the drop in crime because for the most part, there's very little crime, traditional crime.
Fair.
So most of the things that we deal with wouldn't be necessarily impacted by the role that she plays.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think, though, some of the things went unreported in the sense that if people are arrested under the IPTA, which is the Mental Health Act, it wouldn't be necessarily captured in a criminal thing. But we can certainly compare year to year because we get those statistics for sure. But I don't know if that's going to be an accurate picture of the worth.
Okay.
I can say just the fact that the hospitals call us or call Ashley for help versus, can you help us with this person is a good sign of a change in the mindset. But the crime aspect, I don't know if I'm going to be able to give you anything that's going to give you a tangible drop in crime.
I'm sorry, can I just clarify? Did you say the hospitals are now calling Ashley instead of the police force itself?
Yeah, so
So-
what'll happen is she'll get a text or call from somebody, because so they're very supportive, just to be clear, and the Valley Regional has been very supportive of this role. So I can't say enough about the response we got from Valley Regional. They've been they're very short-staffed and they're overwhelmed.
Mhm.
So part of what we're trying to do is reduce the amount of calls to the emergency department that don't result in anything other than frustration for everybody. And they're appreciative of that as well. So actually, we've not finished our policy, but working on a policy that we're going to share with them for input, so we don't do that. But yeah, no, we're getting calls from organizations to, hey, can you help me out with this, as opposed to the other way around. And they're not calling police officers, they're calling Ashley.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Sabian.
Just, thank you, one more question. Ashley, just wondering, the people that you do come in contact with that are homeless, are you able to help them and find them a place to go, I guess? Second, is there anything else we could be doing more as a town to help these people? Because that is a continual problem here in Kentville. It's a big problem. I'm downtown all day, so I see it. So is there anything else we could be doing as a town, and are you successful with helping them, find someplace warm to be, I guess? Thank you.
That is a good question. A lot of the work I'm not doing myself, but in terms of referrals, it's been very successful working with other organizations, whether it's connecting someone with a housing support worker or calling shelters even outside of Kentville just to get someone in anywhere that they can stay. In terms of things that you could be doing, if you want to build more shelters or more affordable housing, but yeah, in terms of that, it's just connecting them rather than doing the work myself.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, council, if there's no further questions, Ashley, on behalf of council, thank you very much for your time this evening. And if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, what is the best way of doing that?
Absolutely. So I don't, is my,
Call the front desk of police station?
you absolutely can do that, and you can
Okay.
ask for me.
Okay,
Yeah, and
perfect,
you'll be
perfect.
connected that way.
All right, so I'll just leave you with this thought that the true measure of a community is how we take care of our most vulnerable, and you're leading the charge on that. So thank you very much on behalf of the town and of the council for the work that you're doing here.
Thank you guys so much.
All right. All right, and we're moving on now to our department reports and recommendations. The directors have provided their reports for council review and will provide an update and receive questions from council. And council directly to the directors as they come up. The reports will be presented, are part of the record of this meeting, and only items of new business arising from the reports will be taken for motion. And CAO Troke, if you could please introduce our department reports and recommendations.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. So tonight, as we do many nights, Director Kroll will come up and amaze us in our financial condition here in the town.
That was a chuckle. How do I turn this down so I don't get funny vibes out of a computer? Can I just turn it down? Can I just shut it? Okay, sorry about that. I just don't want to have other stuff glaring at me. Thank you for, well, I guess I'm not invited. I guess I'm supposed to be here. Oh, okay, I am short. I need a box. I guess I could have brought a box.
We'll get an egg crate for you.
Pardon me?
We'll get one of those milk crates for you.
Yeah, that's what I need, the soapbox. It's my pleasure to be here to present some information from the Finance Department for the month ended October 31st. Turning our eyes to the town of Kentville, the benchmark this month would be 58.3% if everything was averaged evenly over the year. Overall revenue exceeds the average at 86.7% recorded. Taxes are still recorded at 100% at this time. We've received our federal grant in lieu, I've mentioned that before, but we have not yet received our provincial grant in lieu. Under services for other government, we've invoiced the County of Kings for 100% of their share of the library costs. Under other revenue, interest exceeds the benchmark and budget due to funds held on deposit, and this is also due to the increase in interest rates as well. On the expenditure side of the ledger, the expenditures exceed the benchmark. It's at 65.7%. General administration will be over the budget or over the benchmark because of several office expenditure accounts. The recording of Section 69, which is low income, the recording of Section 71, which is charitable organization expense, and the grant expenditures, along with the third quarter, was paid to the property valuation services. Under firefighting, 100% of the fire area rate has been transferred to the Kentville Volunteer Fire Department. We've also paid them 75% of their operating expenditures for the year, and 100% of the hydrant area rate was paid to the Kentville Water Commission, as the URB directs. That's my report on the operating fund in a nutshell. Regarding outstanding taxes, total property tax outstanding at October the 31st is $316,343, or 97.7% collected. And you can see the comparator there for the prior year. Schedule C is the sanitary sewer area service. We're looking at the quarter ended September 30th, so therefore the benchmark would be 50%. Overall revenue falls short of the benchmark at 45.6%. The first and second quarters of 22-23 residential billing are recorded, along with 6 months of their industrial charges. There is one sewer billing that occurs annually at the end of the year, and therefore it skews the percentages. On the expenditure side of the ledger, the expenditures are over the threshold at 56.8%. Administration exceeds the threshold because common service charge is recorded for the year. As well, the transfer to the depreciation fund's bank account has occurred also for the year. Sewer maintenance segments and pumping station segments exceeds their benchmarks due to various maintenance issues in those segments, along with their annual insurance premium. At the end of September, the sanitary sewer area service is reporting an operating deficit of $150,552. Schedules E and F report the perpetual investment fund, and this is for the month ended October 31st. You can see the breakdown of the cost and market for the investment instruments held in the fund in the middle of page 4, and we're looking at interest paid into the fund totaling $37,552, Dividends paid into the fund total $246,358, and management fees total $20,780. Schedule G, relates to the capital investment plan. At the date of writing, we have booked $854,168 in capital acquisition. That's 18.8% of the $4.5 million budget, and that's my report.
Excellent, thank you very much. Director Kroll, are there any questions for the director on this budget, or on this report? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Deb, just on the expenditure side, where you're referring to at September 30th, 2022, this sanitary sewer area service reports the operating deficit of $150,552.
Right.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on that and what that might mean?
Well, we're looking at less than 50% of the revenue is booked, so we're only at 45%. We have, most of the large expenditures have already occurred for the year.
Okay.
We have the common service charge paid in full, the depreciation transfer paid in full. We have the debt service paid in full for the most part. There's a little bit of interest left to be paid, but the principal is paid in full for the year.
Okay.
So there's a lot of those charges that'll skew that percentage somewhat. We also have two utility billings that will be going out.
Okay.
So and it's hopeful. We typically do meet the budget or exceed the budget slightly, so I don't foresee any unusual changes unless there's some terrible maintenance that has to happen between now and heaven forbid, we're not hoping for that. But anyway, at the end of the day, it's just the way that things are paid out.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
a
more
lot
so
of it's
upfront
front-end
than-
loaded, and then
Okay.
you should see that change quite a bit over the next couple of months.
So you're not forecasting, barring anything changing?
This is not a projected
No.
for the end of the year.
No.
This is as at the end of
Yes.
September.
No, I realize that, but we're not, there wouldn't, in all likelihood, be a deficit position at the end of the
There
year.
typically isn't.
Isn't, no, okay.
Barring any unforeseen circumstances.
If there were unforeseen circumstances,
They have money in operating reserve, that
Okay.
if we had to offset a deficit position, we would pull money from the operating reserve.
okay, thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you for your report. I have a few questions here. Under expenditures, as I was going through it, it just seemed that many different areas, like a lot of them, are exceeding the benchmark. And I'm wondering why that is, and if that levels out, or is it because of, like, rising costs, as, but can you explain that a bit?
There's often a disconnect with the quarterly payments that we have to pay some of our service partners, for example, they'll send us their bills in advance of the beginning of the next quarter, so we pay the bill. It sometimes is booked in the current quarter, that type of thing, so there can be a timing effect there. Things like insurance are front-end loaded, that's all paid at the beginning of the year, so that's one of our largest expenditures overall as far as one single invoice, that type of thing. So we typically see things looking in some departments kind of skewed in that it is over the percentage, but as the year wears on, you'll find that it's starting to eke down, and all of a sudden it'll start looking more reasonable to what the percentage should be that month.
Right, okay, so not a concern, really. I'm wondering also, under general administration, why there is a $20,000 increase in the legal expenditure?
Well,
you explain that?
legal expenses are appearing that they're going to exceed their budget, so I've booked in a $20,000 lift for that.
And where do we get that from?
From a variety of things related to legal services, so it's can be anything that we engage our legal firms for.
No, but I mean, where does that $20,000 come from?
Oh, pardon me, I misunderstood. Where does it come from?
Yeah.
Right now, it comes from the general tax rate. So right now, we're posting a small surplus at the end of October. Depending on how we end up at the end of the year, if we are in a deficit position, or we expect that we'll be in a deficit position, we always have a standing resolution created at the end of March that if we are in a deficit position, we can pull from the operating reserve in order to offset that deficit. We don't want to carry that deficit into the first line item for the next year's budget.
Right, okay. And finally, in the summer, I asked you what the current total of legal fees for the Robinson land was. Can you give a status update for right now?
Yes, I can give you an indication. Currently, to the end of October, we're looking at something in the vicinity of 60,300.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, are there any further questions for the director on this report? None? All right, Deb, next report is your projection report, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm bringing forward the second projection report for this year, and we're looking at a decrease in last month's surplus position of $29,100. There's very little change in the revenue streams. It is decreased overall $200, and it comes from own source revenue where we're increasing permits $1,000, but various rentals will not meet their budget, so I've discounted those $1,200, so it's basically a negative $200 overall for revenue from last year to this year. And on the expenditure side of the ledger, we're looking at general administration being, I'm increasing that $23,500. Most of that comes from the legal bump that we just talked about of $20,000 in general administration office expenses. And I've also increased the grants by $2,000 because last budget or last meeting, we had Frugal Mom Society grant was approved for $2,000. So that I gave that particular line item a lift of $2,000. Recreation is up $3,200 from last report. Administration is up $5,500 in their office expense, and this relates to increases in training and increases in communications and technology. Programs in recreation are up $1,800, and it relates to Canada Cup. $3,700 was the increase needed there, but it's offset by various reductions in various camps of around $1,900. Parks Division was reduced by $3,000, and this is due to the fact that there are some positions that remain vacant in that particular segment. And Facilities is down $1,100, and that's reductions in the tennis court expenses and other facility maintenance accounts. Education for the first time has increased $1,300 from budget, and this is related to updated information received from the Regional Center for Education that came in the month of October. Kentville was given one more student, so that increased our costs slightly. And there was some updated assessment information from the former village of Hantsport, who is part of this program. We could not get those numbers before we set our budget, so therefore that number came in. And we're looking at a $1,300 increase there in education. So we're looking at projected increase in expenditures this month at $28,900. So the surplus projected to the end of March at the end of October is smaller than it was last month, but it's still a surplus, and we're looking at it at $22,700. And that's my report.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Are there any questions with regards to this report? No questions? All right, we'll move on to your next one, the resolution for withdrawal, please.
Yes, thank you very much. We have a resolution for withdrawal from Town Capital Reserve, and this is draw number 1 for the 22-23 capital budget. As you know, the budget provides partial funding of capital acquisitions from the town's capital reserve fund. Several projects are complete or partially complete and require a resolution of council to withdraw funds. So you can see in the chart that's attached the projects and the budget that has been created from reserve and the amount for each of those particular segments. We're looking at a total withdrawal of $280,293.78. The Town of Kentville Capital Reserve General Allocation contains $2,050,828, and after the withdrawal, it will contain $1,770,534. So my recommendation reads that I recommend to Council Advisory Committee that the attached resolution be approved for withdrawal of $280,293.78 from the Town of Kentville Capital Reserve General Allocation. And after this approval, I recommend that the resolution be forwarded to the next meeting of Town Council for ratification.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Director Kroll. And if we were to turn that into a motion, that CAC recommend to the November 28th, 2022 council meeting approval of a withdrawal from the Town of Kentville Capital Reserve General Allocation in the amount of $273,060.26. Someone could move that, please. Deputy Mayor, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor York, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that CAC recommend to the November 28th, 2022 council meeting approval of a withdrawal from the Town of Kentville Capital Reserve General Allocation in the amount of $273,060.26. Is there any discussion on this matter?
May I make a comment? Those are the wrong numbers.
Different than what you said.
Yeah, they're different than the resolution that I have before you.
273?
It's 280,293.78.
So our package is incorrect?
Well, I don't know. The package that I have, which I thought is the same as what you've got, it shows 280,293.78. I'm sorry if there's a confusion there, but anyway.
Okay, if you could give me that number, 280?
280,293.78.
All right, so all of this paperwork will have to be redone?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll start that over then. So we do have a recommendation. That CAC recommend to the November 28th, 2022 council meeting approval of a withdrawal from the Town of Kentville Capital Reserve General Allocation in the amount of $280,293.78. Deputy Mayor, Councillor York, are you good with that change? All right, so it has been moved and seconded that CAC recommend to the November 28th, 2022 council meeting approval of withdrawal from the Town of Kentville Capital Reserve General Allocation in the amount of $280,293.78. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion? And the voting is now open. Voting is now closed. And the motion is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Director Kroll. All right, moving right along to our planning and development, our report from the Acting Development Officer, CAO. If you could take this one, please.
Thank you very much. And so folks will notice that Kirsten Duncan has put the report together. Just want to touch on a couple of highlights tonight. So development permits, we have another 9 permits were filed in to the end of October with a valuation of $1,078,492. That brings our total year to date to 118 permits and just shy of $20 million worth of activity. One of the things we just want to note is that one of the things that we're seeing more and more of is folks coming in and making inquiries around solar panels. So we had 8 permits with regards to panels with a total valuation of just shy of $500,000. So it's a piece where folks are starting to go out there and explore other kinds of technology from a perspective of electrical generation. Right now, there's 2 projects. Of course, the Bryson rezoning, we're continuing to get information from the consultant. Staff have had an opportunity to go take a look at another project that the organization is involved with, and crafting information that they're responding back and forth to get some further details. Encore has come back with some preliminary plans for the redesign of the second phase of Ryan Park. So these have been forwarded. A number of questions were put together and supplied back to the folks involved in that. So we've been getting a lot of phone calls. I know there's been a lot of information has flowed through, particularly from individuals with regards to the rezoning application, and staff are continuing to put that information back for a full package for council's review. And that's the report.
Thank you very much. And questions? Councillor Zabian.
Thank you. Thanks, CAO. Just wondering, I have 2 questions. The first one is regarding Encore. So they've, are these changes conflicting with their original contract, or can you elaborate a little more on?
Thank you, Councilor, and I appreciate that. And so what they're doing is they're looking at redesigning the height of the buildings.
Okay. And the second question is, has the town advertised for a planning director yet? Is there anything out?
Operationally, we haven't moved forward with that.
Okay. And do you know when that might happen or when you might?
At this point in time, I'm actually more focused structurally on internally making sure that the work continues to get done. And we made some structural changes even here around our senior advisory committee. So at this point in time, I don't have any specific plan on when I would do that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Zabian actually asked the question about the Encore piece, but I might just elaborate a little bit more. So there looks like there's going to be a redesign around the height. And that would mean obviously that there's going to be more, there would potentially be more buildings.
I think it's more at this point, and this is just preliminary. All they're doing is looking at adding some extra capacity on the site.
Okay, all right, great, thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, the 14 special events permits, are those the Healy weddings?
I don't believe so, but I have to get back to you on that to give you some greater detail around it.
Yeah, just wondering, just an update on that, how many events they held, and I don't remember how many they're allowed, so maybe just
Okay,
a check
I'll look
on
into that and get right back to you.
Thank you.
Oh, one more thing.
Go ahead.
Sorry, just wanted to point out that the civic address, the sign for Caldwell Avenue is missing at the corner of Caldwell and Exhibition. So there's no sign there, and we've had several delivery people not be able to find where they're going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, CAO, back to you for community economic development.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. One of the things, I guess, at this time of year, Holidays Festival marketing in full swing. The festival kicks off on Friday, November 18th. A number of beautification items have arrived for downtown, so we're slowly working our way on the switch over from harvest to holidays. I know that Lindsay has been very busy with a lot of requests that have been coming from the community around a number of things that are going on. So I want to continue to give a shout out for her for all her efforts that she makes in all those areas that the little things that happen downtown, we just take for granted. And but right now, the big switch over is moving into kind of a new season, if you will. So, and with the temperature dropping, it will feel more and more like that every day.
Thank you, CAO. Are there any questions with regards to this report? Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. First, I just wanted to send out kudos to Lindsay and whoever else was involved. I love the fake grass mats in Center Square. I had to walk in the other day to take a look to see if it was real or not, but yeah, I really like it. Looks good with all the chairs and the benches, and yeah, fantastic. I'm a little surprised that we're still looking for washroom space. And I had asked last time this came up if all the places around the Center Square had been checked out. And I know that there is an empty space on Center Square. And I know that at one point a lease was written up. I'm not sure why we haven't followed through. Obviously, Center Square is the best location for a public washroom. To put it over in the recreation center is not the best location. And I'm just wondering why we're not pursuing the spot that is available. And if somebody could enlighten me on that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
So thank you, Councillor. First of all, we've had a number of conversations with a number of folks with regards to spaces. And so as far as there's never been a lease has been negotiated between myself and any organization. With regards to the space here at Center Square, or here at Town Hall, this is kind of a 2-for-1 rate at the moment. We've got some work that's underway, and I think that Ashley did a good job of describing some of the things that we're seeing out there. We are through recreation and some of the conversation that got started over a year ago with a number of our partners looking for opportunities this winter to be engaging, particularly for folks who may be looking for some supports for either their children or through their life. And we were looking at doing some more drop-in activities here this year. We haven't had an opportunity to sit down with the community and have a full conversation around this, so we want to make sure that we have that consultation piece with the groups who will be supporting on us. So at this point in time, this was kind of a 2-for-1. We're starting off with this to support some of those activities and some of the needs of folks, even outside of events. But second, we haven't certainly stopped the exploration of what we're looking to do long-term. And I would not preclude that that doesn't mean that we wouldn't potentially build something specific in Center Square.
Thank you. Well, thank you for that response. I know that a lease was drawn up. It was never signed. And I can get my hands on it if I need to. So, you know, I'm trying to be very polite here, but it's looking like we're not using a space. I hate to use the word discrimination, but we're not using a space that's available because we like one person and we don't like another person. And that is holding the town back. It's not part of our decision-making wheel. And personally, I think we should get on with it and use the space that's available. I just see no reason for it, and I really, it does not look good. And like I said, I can get you a copy of that. I know it went to legal. I know that there was a lawyer in town that was
Councillor
working
Maxwell,
for one
you're-
party.
You're
and,
now, you're pushing it now.
How? I'm giving facts. You asked me to give facts, I'm giving facts. It is a fact. And I know the lawyer who was involved.
So, Councillor, a third-party lawyer drew up something and handed it to the town.
Yeah.
That's not a process on how you sign a lease. So just to be clear, is that if somebody wants to come in and say, here's something that I want you to consider, anybody can cold call anybody. There was no lease negotiated. There was certainly conversations with multiple landlords. And if a landlord chose to go to their lawyer and draw up a document and say, this is what I'm proposing, that's part of a conversation. It's not a lease. It's not a signed lease. It's not even a negotiated lease. So in any situation, if someone chose as part of their business to draw up a document and give it to the town, make no mistake, there's nothing discriminatory. That's them cold calling the town to try and do something. And so that has no bearing at the end of the day. Most people would sit down and say, here's what I'm proposing in a document, and then you would negotiate what that is. Again, that is no closer to signing or forming a lease than if you took a document and handed it to me and said, I'd like you to consider this.
Well, that's not the discussion that was relayed to me, and I find that very disturbing. So, I mean, we have one answer, somebody else in town has another answer.
So, Counselor, I'm the one who spoke specifically to the people you're talking to.
Yeah.
And if they want to portray something different, I'm saying to you clearly
Yeah.
that there was no negotiated value. If a document was sent through to this town, it was a document they were doing to try and sell what they were doing to the town.
Yep.
Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. CAO, I have to follow in the footsteps of Councillor Maxwell. That's not accurate information. And I'm not gonna say very much right now, but there was a lease and it was negotiated. No landlord in town is gonna draft up a lease and send it to the town and say, hey, you wanna rent my space, here are my terms. So there was some process there, whether it was in the planning department, whoever was in charge of that, there was a process there. I'm not gonna say any more, but I don't like misrepresented facts, and that is a misrepresentation of facts there. Thank you.
Councillor Zabian, that is not a misrepresented fact, and I spoke to the people involved in this. So directly, and to be clear, Councillor, no ambiguity, that if someone came in here and put a document down in front of you and said, here's what I would like to do, and you have had no conversations around terms, there's no lease has been negotiated, and if they choose to do that, they're choosing to do that, not the town doing anything.
So just to clarify, I guess the only question I want to ask you is, nobody from the town of Kentville talk to anybody that has property downtown and came up with terms that were drafted in a lease, whether the town drafted it or somebody, that's what I'm asking you. That's a simple question.
Simple, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, CEO.
The simple question, council, is there have been discussions with multiple landlords, and if one of them chooses to put down something on a piece of paper, happy to review it.
Thank you.
I'll leave it at that, but that's not, doesn't sit well with me, but anyway, we're not gonna argue, let's move on.
Point of order, I don't understand what's happening here, and I'm not sure if this is something that we should be speaking about in an open session. Perhaps I'm wrong, I don't know, but there seems to be a lot of ambiguity here, and
Thank you. We will, if it pleases the council, we do have room in our agenda to move such a matter to an in-camera.
I'm happy to motion to put it in camera.
Okay. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
We have a motion to move this discussion in camera, which has been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. And there's two negatives, Councillor Zabian and Councillor Maxwell on that motion. And if you could add to the agenda, based on this motion, that in camera, there will be a discussion of the downtown public
Comfort station.
facility,
Comfort station.
comfort station. Thank you. Director Bedingfield, your turn. Bring us some good news.
Good evening, Council. Just a few things I wanted just to bring forward in my report. You do have that in the package. As you remember, or hopefully remember, the last time I was here, I'd asked if, just to let you know that on behalf of the town of Kentville, I went into the city to sign the anti-racism charter for with Recreation Nova Scotia. That happened. It was quite a wonderful event, I'm happy to say. We were the only municipality present in the signing. I do also want to point out that the town of Truro signed on. They just weren't at the event. So it's pretty impressive that we're the first two municipalities in the province to sign on to the Anti-Racism Charter, which is great. This is also Anti-Racism Awareness Week. So there are sport, recreation, and physical activity organizations are doing a tour throughout the province and having various workshops throughout the province, of which we're hosting one here tomorrow, which is really great. The Valley Homeless No More Committee held their Next Steps Valley-wide meeting on October 24th. Actually, Ashley was there at that, which is great. There will be a full report coming out from that, including next steps. But to note, participants continued to state, much like what Ashley was saying, that there's a continued state of crisis for many of their clients. It continues to grow, and that shared concern was expressed over the colder weather months that are quickly approaching. And people looking for support as the temperature drops. Administratively, I'd like to welcome 2 new staff to our team, which is really great. So we filled the Active Living Community Coordinator position with Becca Craik. This is her 2nd week. She keeps showing up, so that's great. I think she's going to continue to do that. You never really know, but she's quite wonderful. And then we have Eugene Forbes, who's part of our parks team now, but you also might see him at the arena, so he's helping out there. So it's been a long time since our department has been. We're still not quite full staff, but we're much closer. So it's really great to have the team working at almost full throttle again. Facility and operations, I think it's important to note, and I want to bring this here and you'll start to hear me talk more about it. Our facility manager, Craig, has been working on a facility allocation policy. This is something that doesn't exist in the town, and so he's been working quite hard on that document, and he's also running it through an equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility lens. So when we do bring it to you, it's important to note that it's been vetted by the Accessibility Committee along with community engagement. And we'll be working with the Recreation Facility Association as well as in partnership with the municipality of Antigonish, and there's just a lot of really great people around that table trying to figure out the best way forward. Programs and operations. Just a quick note, and I like to throw these numbers around, but that our spike fund continues to get requests. Right now, we're at $2,867, and we've supported 23 individual families. We're starting to get requests that are more seasonal now, so we've had a few people come in and ask for winter gear in order to play in the snow, and also just simply to be able to keep their feet warm as they walk back and forth to things like doctor's appointments and check-ins and mental health supports and things like that. Kentville Rec Text, this is my monthly plug, that it's a really great way to stay connected. You can find all that information on our website. If you happen to have been a part of any of the amazing community outreach events that happened in October, and a huge thank you to Ashley Alders from our department, who that really makes us look good, if I'm being honest, especially for the scavenger hunt. So if you were part of that rec text, then you got a little 20-minute leadway on hints about where the gourds were. So I just want to throw that out there. It's a good way. Yeah, that's the secret. Yeah. So in the month of October, of course, we had our annual Harvest Festival, which was very well attended. We had KCA students dropping pumpkins out of from a crane. Mayor Snow was there, along with the two judges here. It's pretty stressful. Must be hard being the chief. The big event, Gourd of the Rings, that had community members look all over our parks and trails for 3 small gourds. Now, this is not the highlight of this report, but I do want to point out that that's a gourd this small, and somehow they were found within a weekend. So kudos to this community for being very committed for hunting. And then, of course, the Pumpkin People Scavenger Hunt that was put on in partnership with our Community Economic Development Coordinator. For a lot of these events, and I've been asked these questions before, but there are prizes that are awarded, be it gift certificates or actual items. All of those things come from Kentville Business. We're very supportive and focused on making sure that all of our dollars stay locally. And just a quick piece around capital projects. The dog park you can see being constructed. We still have some groundwork. You'll also notice that there are signs saying that it's going to open in the spring. So don't let your dog run there right now. And that's my report.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Director Bedingfield. Are there any questions for the director? Councillor Huntley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's not a question, actually, but I think this is an important piece of information. I would like to congratulate you, Rachel, as being elected as the new president of REC Nova Scotia.
Thank you.
Great representation.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you.
I go by president now.
Okay, I'll get it right next time. Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam President,
That's
for your report. Just a couple of things. People are always wanting more skating times all the time, and you know that. I'm wondering about if there will be more opportunities for weekend skates. And I'm thinking about, there's probably a lot of games, hockey games scheduled at the rink on weekends and things like that. And when those teams are traveling and their ice time is available, is that being utilized, like put out there to say, okay, this coming Saturday, we have a space from this time to this time?
So we have, I think, at least one. I haven't looked at the schedule in a while, but I think we have at least one public skate on the weekend, and it's almost every Saturday. Sundays, our arena is booked solid from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m., and that's booked by user groups. So whether or not they're there for travel games, they still get charged for it. So it's up to them whether or not they tell us that they're not in the facility. We just know from the bottom line that this is our revenue for that. So, but I don't know, we wouldn't know the individual game or schedule. They don't provide us with that, unless it's something that our staff need to know. Like, we know when our sled hockey team is playing, we know when there's, there's a need for separation of male-female dressing rooms, all those things.
Yeah, just like in scheduling and so on, when, I know about sports and how that's done, and I'm just, can we not ask those teams, like, right at the beginning of their seasons, they have their schedules set, so they know when their space is available. It shouldn't be a problem for them to contact your office and say, on this date, and this date, right now, that ice is free. Mm-hmm. It's available. And but then if something changes, they can come back and say, no, we're going to use it on this date. I'm just thinking it's, that's just a communication thing. I'm just wondering if maybe
Yeah,
there's
we
a
can-
way to investigate whether or not that can be done, that those teams can be asked to give in to our arena manager their schedules.
Yeah, I'm sure we can put that request in for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I think sometimes, even when they have away games, either they know the schedule and they haven't booked it,
Yeah,
or they open it up to extra practice time for other teams, but certainly we can.
yeah, you just
Like that.
to investigate it a little bit.
Yeah,
see.
and that might be something too that we, even put into the facility allocation policy, so that if you know you're not gonna be there, let's make sure that it's another way to ensure access.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
then we get more access for everybody
Yeah,
else, so.
yeah.
Okay, another thing on the dog park, I noticed that there's a division of spaces. Is that for large dogs and small dogs, or?
Yeah, so 30 pound and under,
Okay.
small dog.
Mhm.
30 pound, you get to decide if your dog's gonna be big that day or little that day. But
Okay.
that's generally the common practice.
Okay, and are we gonna, are Numinus and us going to plant trees there to provide shade? We're gonna use some sails in the meantime, but really it's right out there and the sun is gonna be beating down. Just wondering about if there's
Yes.
been a plan for that.
So we've been working with the community group and have within our budget, have a plan for ensuring accessibility and ensuring that there's seating and having some shade. Anything above and beyond that, they know that they're to fundraise for it.
Great, okay, thank you very much.
Director Bedingfield, I just have to say that October's one of those really fun months, and we get to see Spike, and going to KCA to read to the grade 3 students is really such a great thrill. And then I think the bestest day of ever is typically November the 1st, when we get to smash some pumpkins. And unfortunately, we make Spike watch, but it is one of those things. And I have learned that I do come behind the 3 Ps: princesses, pumpkins, and police. So that's never an issue. And a big shout out goes out to Ashley, because she came out this year and cut open the dead pumpkin boxes for us, and it was quite the event. And there were 2 people who typically walk the trail who actually stopped to watch the festivities, and I had the pleasure of talking to them the following Sunday, and they were beside themselves. They were still talking about the kids and how excited they were. So it's one of those events that you can say only happens in Kentville.
Well, that's very true. I think we may have to start putting a trauma-informed lens for poor Spike, who has to watch his aunts and uncles be smashed from the crane, but yes.
Exactly.
It's upsetting.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your report. And typically, we would have a police report here. Chief, did you have anything that you wanted to provide to us? I realize that we don't have a police commission, so your report has not been vetted through them. However, the floor is yours.
No, as you know, there's no reports because we didn't have a meeting last month. Now, you've seen a presentation and I've answered some questions. Are there any questions on the navigator position or in general about policing I can answer?
Council? I guess you were, oh, there we go. Deputy Mayor.
I have a question on the navigator position. So I know that was a grant piece.
Correct.
It was part of it. Is that something that you reapply for, or, and if I'm overstepping, I apologize, or is that something that presumably will come before budget with council?
I managed to get the
soon?
last year of a 5-year program,
Okay.
so the grant will end technically December 31st.
Yes.
I've asked them to extend whatever money's left over till it runs out,
Okay.
which we should be able to get till the end of January.
Okay.
So the grant is over. There's no more grants from that fund. And I was surprised to get the grant, to be honest. I was told I wasn't going to get it
Okay.
because it didn't really match anything.
Oh, I
And
see.
surprisingly, we got it. So they
Okay.
liked the presentation and they liked the concept, so they approved it.
Excellent.
So yeah, it would be a budget item to go before the board. Hopefully, as soon as we have a board,
Okay.
I can get before them and discuss it more. And then there'll be a request certainly for funding in the next year.
Okay, yeah, that's very important, so thank you for that. Okay.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, Chief, if that position maybe can be put underneath the Nova Scotia Police Commission, or like, it's so successful that maybe all of the police departments should know about it, and maybe it can be they can come up with some kind of grant or something to,
So when you say the police commission, like the
I
provincial?
mean, the provincial body.
So I work with my Department of Justice
Police
colleagues.
chiefs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the chiefs won't pay for our position for
No.
sure, because they'll only fund their own. Obviously, they get the
Yes.
funding from the board. I worked with our Department of Justice colleagues to try to find funding sources for a couple of months before
Right.
we were successful. So I would suggest there's no other external funding right now that I'm aware of, because we exhausted the list last year.
Yeah.
And we're lucky to get a significant amount of money, where many grants are, $4,000 or $5,000.
Yeah.
We were given a lot more than that for this. So no, I'm not aware of any funding sources, but I'm comfortable saying my colleagues will not pay for this position.
Right, okay, thank you.
So Chief, it looks like as soon as you get that before the police commission, end of month is when we will be doing our committees, and within a month, we will have all of our committees stood up. So if you had something before them in January, we have, in a number of cases, done pre-funding of things. So I just put that on the table as an option.
I'm certainly looking for options, and I'll be creative when I meet with the board.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chief.
All right, thank you.
All right, and our next staff report is from the Department of Engineering and Public Works, and David Bell.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll start with the Kentville Water Commission update. Operationally, there were no issues with the Kentville Water Commission, other than the failure of our 10-year-old pickup truck that was scheduled to be replaced next fiscal year. So permission was given at last month's Water Commission quarterly meeting to order a new truck now, with hopes that one would be available for delivery at the start of the new fiscal year. The sanitary sewer area service, operationally, there were no issues other than the typical service line failures and things in our right-of-way that we've replaced several of throughout this construction season. Under projects, the big capital project, McDonald Avenue subdivision upgrade, the majority of the water, sewer, and storm sewer replacement on this first phase of the capital project is complete, and focus is switching now to the rebuilding of the road with new gravels, and then in the coming week or two, concrete curbs and gutter and pavement. This should be done with all things considered, if the weather cooperates as it has been, although it is getting colder, by the end of November, first week of December. The AT project, Justice Way section of the downtown AT connector, what I've got there has been completed, except for the new crosswalk at crossing over from Cornwallis to Station Lane. And the next section to be completed is on Station Lane, the two sections of Station Lane. Other troublesome sidewalk and curb upgrades at a few areas along Park Street and the west end of Main Street is expected to happen later this week. And the town-owned portion of the Meadowview Trail on both sides of the newly replaced bridge is being resurfaced, and that started actually late last week, with continuation happening this week to complete that trail resurfacing. The Kentville Heritage Center roof was replaced. The project was completed at the end of October, and it looks great. They found a few areas of just a little bit of rotten wood under the old roof, but in general, it was in pretty good condition. Where they repaired those and put on some new roof vents, and then reshingled the entire roof. It looks great. And I get a brief update on the extra sidewalk work that was approved in September. Work begun today on the upgrades to the Klondike sidewalk, and we already heard some feedback from folks that we're very happy to see that work start today. And that is my brief report.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Director. And we have questions from Council. Council Zabian.
Thank you. Director Belle, I gotta ask you again, I know you probably get sick of this question, because that bridge has been there for 2 years, but what are we gonna do about the lighting? I ask that because it's dark now at 4:30, and I'm getting every day phone calls, and I know that it's up to the province, right, but do you have any update or what we may be able to do ourselves somehow to
the province has told us that they're not going to light the bridge itself. So it was almost a year ago, I think it was actually early December of last fall, that we met Nova Scotia Power on site on both ends of the bridge to look at lighting at least the approaches. So that there's some holdups there, both with NS Power and one of the businesses there that was working to have their large sign replaced. That now has been confirmed that it's on hold. So we met again, I guess it was just last week, with a new local representative of NS Power, and they're going to do a two-phased approach. There's existing poles on both sides of the bridge, not close enough, in my opinion, to fully light the bridge, but back a bit from the intersection, they're going to put a long arm LED light as step one on both the northwest side, sort of the Brooklyn Street side, but as close to the bridge as possible, and another one on the south side that will certainly light up the island area. But we feel step two is to set two new poles, one on the closer to the bridges on both sides, and add LED lights. So they're going to start with the first phase right away, and get those arms added to the existing poles, and then set two more poles is the
And
plan.
sorry, you said right away, do you know when roughly?
They were going to double check that work order was still
Okay.
open when he last spoke to me last week. So I'll confirm with him this week that work order is still valid and doesn't need to be reopened on our end with NS Power. So if that's good, they should be doing the arms on the existing poles as step one, certainly before the calendar year's up.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Maxwell.
Oh, thank you. I'm just wondering, when we do the section of AT lane across Justice Way in front of, or on Station Lane, by the Heritage Center, do we have to put new pavement there? Like, is there enough concrete there? Do we have to change what's already there? Is it going to interfere with that Masonic garden that's there? I'm just wondering.
Won't affect the garden. There will be new, where the concrete sidewalk is now, that is being replaced, and it's twofold. I mean, it's not wide enough for a true multi-use path, because we're going to have a 10-foot or 3-meter, I guess, multi-use path. So it'll be widened. Don't see that it's going to affect the garden in any way. Rachel's agreeing. Some new curbing to go in along kind of where the old bus lay-by lane is. There's a fair bit of standing water there, so there's a little bit of curbing to go in, a new catch basin, and then take out the old sidewalk and make it basically twice as wide as it is now. Okay. The concrete bollards will have to go. We'll take salvage of those to find another purpose for them.
Yeah.
But they'll be gone, and then it'll continue down Justice Way to Aberdeen, and then across to the other Justice Way, Station Lane, sorry, to Aberdeen, and then, of course, a section in front of the pharmacy and around by Kings Riverside. So
Right.
that'll all come out in favor of a 10-foot wide
Okay.
new concrete sidewalk. We put it out as two options, asphalt and sidewalk, or asphalt and concrete sidewalk, multi-use pathway, I should call it. And the prices were favorable enough that we certainly chose the concrete as the more durable and long-lasting
Yeah.
solution.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any further questions for the director? There being no further questions, thank you very much for your report.
Thank you.
CAO.
Thank you. Two pieces tonight. First, I'll mention that Mentoring Plus has provided a quarterly report, so the details are there. I haven't had an opportunity to have an in-depth discussion with them, but wanted to make sure the report made its way to the table tonight. As you saw, the town remains in a surplus situation with regards to budget. At Senior Advisory Committee, I already mentioned we made some changes, so we have more folks at the table, including economic development and information technology, and those folks who sit around this leadership table on Tuesday mornings, those numbers will likely grow as we go a little farther with some other pieces of work. This week here in town, the Utility Review Board, and I think it's Thursday, they're going to be here as part of their public meeting process with regards to the boundary review. And I didn't have a whole lot of information other than they were looking for a space and they were following up on the submission. And Pace Animal Control Bylaw come back to council for second reading this month. There's been a number of meetings with regards to occupational health and safety, Pace with regards to our submission that we have moving forward with West Hants. And also had an opportunity last week to have a tour of the Atlantic Poultry Facility, where 20 million baby chicks are going to be hatched there next year. As far as their supply operation is really quite amazing. They haven't fully fitted up the building yet, but I think they were looking at February as a potential go live. So big space, new tenant, and really taking advantage of some of the technology to make it a very efficient operation. So great to see, and I want to thank them for the tour and the opportunity to see what they're doing.
Excellent. Thank you very much, CAO. And questions from members of council. Councilor Zabian.
Thank you. Just two really short questions, CAO. Do you know how many, if anybody, has applied to be on the Heritage Committee? What that number is?
We didn't have enough to fill all the spots yet.
Okay.
I have a feeling, and I want to say we're in the 4 or 5 range.
Okay.
And so we don't yet have enough for all, but I also know we've had a number of people who have called and kind of kicked the tires, so I don't know if they're going to be coming back.
Okay, and my other question is just regarding your report. I know a while back, a couple times we've mentioned, and I wasn't here at that time, so you might want to reference the previous council, that there was a progress. I just heard good things about it. I've never seen it, and Jennifer may be able to tune in. Kind of showed where projects were, how far along they were, and when they were expected to. If you've been able to fine tune that or figure out how to show us that visually again, or
Yeah.
It's online.
thank you.
Thank you. So we, all of the capital stuff we moved online. So certainly there's that online piece, but Jennifer and I actually use it. So it's one of those things we kind of do where it is in progress. If there was a desire for council to kind of see some kind of a visual thing like that, we could do our best to bring that back in some form to match up with the CAC reports.
Yeah, myself, I'd like to see it. I can't speak for everybody else, but
Sure.
I'd appreciate that. Thank
Happy
you.
Councilor Maxwell.
Thank you. I just have a few questions here. Number one, I'm just wondering if you can let the public know, when is the Utility and Review Board public meeting to discuss boundaries, and where is it?
Thursday here, I don't remember off the top of my head the exact time, but I'll get that and forward it back.
Okay, thank you. And secondly, do we know anything about the status on the Code of Conduct report? Is that we had commissioned, basically? I'm wondering, I mean, it's a video. We should have a report back by now. I'm wondering, can we set a timeline for that, or, you know, what's going on there?
Thank you. I spoke to the individual doing the review last week. I know that over and above work, he was looking at potentially doing some follow-up interviews. I don't have any feedback on that. So as of then, I know he was still progressing with his work. So I'll do my best to find an end date and see if I can supply that to council.
Okay, thank you. And just so, I was a little bit concerned, we had a report on Saltwire on their online publication. And obviously, we had some problem with it because it was redone. And I'm just wondering, can we clarify for the public, because some people would have saw the original and then they wouldn't have seen the second one, the legal issue with the Robinson property. Could you clarify all that for the public, please?
Didn't read any article from Saltwire, so I can't speak to that, and I can't speak to a third-party publication.
Okay. Then I'll ask the question then. The article said that the developer was suing the town of Kentville, and this would not be accurate. It would be the town dropping the writ on the developer. Correct?
Again, I didn't read an article, so I can't speak to it. And if you're talking about property action that the town is involved with,
Yes.
Again, I can't get into any details on that, but I don't know specifically what salt wire would or would not have printed. So again, I'm not gonna comment. If you have a question, I'd suggest maybe taking that up with salt wire.
Thank you.
Counselor York.
Thank you. The public hearing on the number of councillors is Thursday, November 28th, or 17th rather, at 10:30 a.m.
All right, if there's no further questions, CAO, thank you for your report. Staff reports have been presented and are now part of the record of this meeting. We have no unfinished business before council this evening, and we have no correspondence. And staff, thank you very much for your input this evening and your reports.
Thanks, everybody.
We do have new business. Our new business is the council meeting dates for 2023, and you have a document in your package. And there's only one change that needs to be made to this document, and that's the Council Advisory Committee meeting. Should read April the 11th, vice April the 10th, because April the 9th is Easter Monday. So April the 10th will be April the 9th is Easter Sunday, so April the 10th will be Easter Monday. And since that's a day of holiday, our council meeting would be on April the 11th. However, based on work that we did this year and several times where we tried to meet with for different meetings and were unable to meet, and we ended up doing things by poll, which was not as effective as it could have been. The chair makes the recommendation or a proposal that, as mentioned previously in September, that council increase the number of CAC meetings from January until May to 2 CAC meetings, and we would still have 1 council meeting. The second CAC meeting would be held on the 3rd Monday from January until May, proposing from 4 to 6 p.m. In deference to our staff. And it would be a working meeting where only governance, policy, and financial and budget matters would be discussed. The meeting would not be held if there was no business, and the meeting would be an open meeting to public and recorded, but it would not be live streamed. And meeting dates would be January 16th, February 20th, March 20th, April 15th, and May 15th of 2023. And I put this out to council. There is simply a recommendation that if this is approved by council, that the CAO would prepare a new briefing note with these details for approval by council on November 28th, 2022. So I put that out there. Councillor York.
Just a conflict with 2 dates. February 20th is Nova Scotia Heritage Day. It's typically a holiday here.
Right.
So that might have to be bumped.
Okay, February 21st.
And April 15th is a Saturday.
Okay.
And I don't want to be here.
Shocking. Should have been a Monday.
Should have been a Monday.
What does it look like? What's the real day?
17th would be the Monday.
17th, okay. Flying fingers of fury.
I tell you.
Okay. And the other dates were all good?
As far as I could see, yeah.
Okay. Councillor Gerard.
To the CAO, if we were gonna do this, would the draft budget be ready to start rolling in, say, January, February?
Potentially February. Certainly what we're doing is we are trying to make sure that the capital budget gets, so as we've been going along, and council's been pre-approving a couple of things to help us get through those humps, our anticipation is that capital budget, we can bring that forward a bit. So certainly that's something we could potentially do. I think the biggest piece around this is a lot of times there's stuff comes up from whether it's committee or there's a joint piece that needs to be done amongst municipal units, and council needs like a half an hour conversation to work their way through it. And so then coming out of that, staff can then get that direction and then walk into the actual council meeting with some stuff prepared. So it's quite possible these dates might not even be needed depending upon the workload. And some of these might be relatively quick. But certainly if council's wish is maybe to do like a walkthrough on one of these budget pieces, we could certainly use one of these dates for that.
And what I'm thinking of is the larger item,
Yeah.
capital purchases that, you know, you don't wanna tender paving in May or June because the paving companies are booked. And you don't wanna tender for, you know, landscape stuff later on because
Sure.
then they'll be installing, you know, parks in November. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. My only thing would be, and I don't know how it would affect staff if we did a 4:30 start and confined it to an hour and a half meeting as opposed to a 2-hour meeting. But obviously, I'll go with whatever majority decides.
CAO, would that work for staff?
I'm sure that it would. It'd probably be very specific to who was ever needed, depending upon what the germane to the conversation was. So I'm sure we can make 4:30 to 6 work.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. Obviously, this creates a real problem for me, but of course, that's not important, I guess. Basically, I'm wondering how quickly we can be informed if we don't, if we're not meeting, because I'll have to hire somebody to do my other responsibility, to cover that.
Councillor Zabian.
Thank you. Could we not do these in the morning when staff is here, and then you're not keeping them here? You know, they're here for CAC once a month. Would it be easier if we did them like at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock in the morning? And if, yeah, just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Would be much easier for me.
CAO?
We can be flexi-bendy on whatever the time is for this to work. Certainly if it's council's wish to do it in the morning, staff is here and can do that. I think some of this is also for those who are typically tied up in the mornings, you know, anywhere in the afternoon we can make work. So whatever works for council, we'll make it work.
So is there, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, and I do apologize, but yeah, 10 o'clock on a Monday morning would absolutely be out of the question for me. I
Okay.
apologize for that, but it's
No.
just not doable.
Have we got,
What about a Tuesday? Sorry.
well, I don't think the day changes for Councillor Maxwell,
Okay.
right?
The day doesn't change.
Or I mean, if we did a morning or through the chair, deputy mayor, all mornings.
Are these Mondays, are they all Mondays?
All Mondays, that's correct.
Okay, that does make a difference.
Okay, so
Yeah.
4:30
Yeah.
to 6 would work,
Would work,
and it's pure business.
yeah.
It's not, there's
They're all
nothing
Mondays.
coming here except for things like policy, things like our grants.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how we did it this year, that was
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that again, and I guess the thing is that we're all busy people, and with doodle polls, there's only so much time in a day, and by the time that we've put them all in, people are already booking in arrears, so we never seem to catch up. So if we had this as a hard book, and it would only be from January to May, and it's really, I'm gonna say focused on budget, but it would also give us the opportunity to do the policy work that we should be getting done.
Yeah, no, that's a respite day, so I guess I can work on
Okay,
that day.
Deputy Mayor?
So when we're talking about policy and things like that, we're talking about our land use bylaw, we're talking about our municipal planning strategy, anything like that, if we wanted to look at some changes on that, that could be included in a meeting like that?
CAO?
I think it could. I think one of the bigger pieces that typically comes up is that there's a request from the province for a response, and they'll send it to the CAO, in which really it should be council looking at it and doing a response on behalf of the town. So that's one of the most frequent things that comes up. Second is out of different committee work, then there's often a request for council's consideration on different things. So I think it's an opportunity for staff and whoever the committee member are to maybe bring something for consideration. So you're not in council, it's just at that point about, here's information, things to consider, shape out what the request would be, and then bring it in to county council. So it could encompass those, but the most frequent thing seems to be these kind of one-of requests.
Okay,
That's really not appropriate for one individual to be responding on those things.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. Just curious if these are going to entail, and probably not, but a few years ago or a long time ago, we had talked about sort of updating a strategic plan. And I know because of COVID and we couldn't meet and all that other stuff, but we're 2 years in and maybe it's something that we can all make another list.
Sure.
Sounds like a plan. All right, so if everyone is happy, I would put this motion for your consideration, that CAC direct the CAO to update the proposed schedule based on the discussion and prepare a new briefing note to council for approval at the November 28th, 2022 council meeting. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor Huntley, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that CAC direct the CAO to update the proposed schedule based on the discussion and prepare a new briefing note to council for approval at the November 28, 2022 council meeting. Is there any further discussion on this matter? There being no further discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is that CAC direct the CAO to update the proposed schedule based on the discussion and prepare a new briefing note to council for approval at the November 28, 2022 council meeting. Real flying fingers of fury over here. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. And our public seems to have disappeared, so I'm going to assume we have no public comment for this evening. However, we do have one matter which went into in camera, and we will not be returning to Facebook Live after the in-camera session. So if I could have a motion to move in camera to discuss the legal matter. And the motion, Councillor York, thank you. And a second, Councillor Huntley, thank you. And the time is 7:36. And ladies, thank you so much for being here this evening. You make our meetings that much more accessible.